Fall Guy is an action comedy that doubles as a sincere thank you note to stunt performers. It celebrates the people who throw themselves off buildings and through glass so that the audience can cheer for someone else. At the center of that tribute is Colt Seavers, a once fearless stuntman who disappears after a devastating on-set accident. When he surfaces again, the woman he loves, Jodie Morn, is directing her first big feature, and the preening star of that movie, Tom Ryder, has gone missing. The search for Ryder drags Colt out of hiding, forces Jodie to confront unfinished business, and turns a show business problem into a dangerous conspiracy. This recap walks through the movie in detail, with fully finished paragraphs and a focus on Colt, Jodie, and Ryder, stopping just before the final showdown. This script follows the film's story from Colt's fall to his reluctant return to Hollywood, the tension and tenderness of his reunion with Jodie, and the escalating mystery around Tom Ryder. It explains how the production within the movie functions, why Colt keeps getting pulled into increasingly real danger, and how Jodie's leadership on set collides with her unresolved anger toward Colt. It also traces how Ryder's ego and fear feed a criminal mess that others are eager to pin on the most expendable person in the room. The aim is to give you a thorough hour-plus narration blueprint with clear section headers using placeholder timestamps that you can replace later. As requested, the recap stops before the climax so the resolution remains intact for viewers. Colt begins as the invisible backbone of a blockbuster. He sets himself on fire, crashes cars, falls from terrifying heights, and pops up smiling so a movie star can bask in applause. He is not reckless, he is precise. He is also in love with Jodie, a camera operator who is as tough as any stunt coordinator and more exacting than most directors. Their attraction lives in banter, glances across monitors, and the way they quietly cover for one another when a setup runs long or a department is short on hands. Colt's confidence on the job is absolute, but it rests on a careful pact of trust that includes Jodie, the stunt team, and every safety check on the call sheet. The pact breaks on a day that should have been routine. A high-fall rig that Colt has executed many times becomes the moment everything goes wrong. He climbs, checks his gear, cracks a joke, and drops. The camera gets the shot, but the math fails him. He lands badly, the impact folding his body in a way the harness cannot forgive. Crew sprint in. The star performs concern for the press unit. Jodie's composure cracks as she realizes that the person who has always bounced back is not bouncing at all. The accident shatters bones and confidence. Colt leaves the industry convinced that the thing he is best at nearly ended him and could poison the one relationship that mattered. 18 months pass. Colt has turned down his volume and vanished into ordinary work far from cameras. He parks cars, moves props, and narrates his days with a humor that hides humiliation. He will joke with a stranger about the physics of a parallel park, then fall silent when the subject turns to what he used to do. He does not answer calls from old friends. He does not answer messages from Jodie. The scar on his back is obvious. The injury to his pride runs deeper. He tells himself he is protecting her by staying away, but the truth is simpler and harder. He is afraid to be seen as broken by the person whose opinion matters most. Weasel, his most persistent contact, keeps needling him to return. Weasel points out that Colt's instincts are still there and that the industry moves on without apology. Colt shrugs off the pitch, but the way he looks at the skyline when a helicopter passes says everything. He misses the work and the purpose that came with it. He simply does not believe he can stand under the lights again without flinching. It is easier to be anonymous than to risk failing in front of Jodie. Producer Gail Mayer finds Colt in his off-screen life and entices him back with a mixture of flattery, urgency, and manipulation. Jodie, she says, is directing her first major feature. The movie is a sprawling science fiction epic with a cast of thousands, a mountain of visual effects, and Tom Ryder's name above the title. The stunt department needs a steady hand. The production needs a fixer who can keep problems quiet. Gail frames Colt's return as a professional favor, but she knows it is a personal provocation. She understands that the promise of seeing Jodie succeed is the one thing that can pull him out of hiding. Colt arrives on the new set expecting some warmth and quickly discovers he misread the situation. Jodie is in command. She is tired, focused, and absolutely not happy to see him. She never asked for her past to walk into her first day as a director. When their eyes meet, the air goes sharp. Colt reaches for humor to close the distance. Jodie gives him nothing. Their conversation is brittle and short because the production is hectic and because neither knows how to talk about what happened between them. Colt takes the hint and heads to the stunt unit where his muscle memory wakes up in spite of himself. The production inside the movie is a circus. Assistant directors juggle extras, visual effects supervisors negotiate what can be fixed later, and every department insists it is the one being ignored. A running joke lands with a sting. The star gets the close-ups while the person doing the dangerous work gets told to be invisible. Colt understands that bargain and accepts it without complaint, but the distance between credit and labor has never felt wider. Ryder's publicity clips feature him bragging about the realism of the action. Colt watches one in silence and quietly checks the seams on his pads. Jodie navigates that circus with a director's calm, but the cost shows in the corners of her posture. She wants to deliver big spectacle with practical stunts and real weight. Studio executives want easy spectacle that tests well in a marketing meeting. Gail wants a product that can be shot on schedule. Colt recognizes how lonely leadership can be. He steps in to solve problems without being asked, not because it will get him noticed, but because he cannot observe a set in crisis and stay still. It is his way of apologizing without saying the word. At first, the production treats Ryder's absence as a scheduling hiccup. A car needs to be ready. A wig needs to be adjusted. The star will appear when he feels like it. Then hours become days. Gail pulls Colt aside and drops the real ask. She needs him to find Ryder quietly because a missing headline star can sink a first-time director's movie. Colt hears what she is saying and what she is not. Protect the picture. Protect Jodie's career. Make sure the public never knows how close this all came to falling apart. Colt follows a chain of leads through the edges of the industry that most people pretend not to see. Hotel managers remember Ryder's entourage but not the actor himself. Club bouncers remember a fight where someone else paid the bill. Assistants talk fast and say nothing. Every stop ends with Colt fighting someone who mistakes him for security or for a fan who wandered too close. He uses prop-style improvisation to stay upright, flipping furniture as if it were rigged and protecting his head the way years of rehearsal taught him. The pattern is impossible to ignore. Ryder is not delayed. He is hiding. The question becomes why, and the answer will not flatter anyone. Colt starts to see the outlines of a frame-up. Money tied to shady financiers is moving through shell companies connected to Ryder's entourage. A fixer with too many burner phones keeps turning up near people who have recently changed their stories. A stunt double with a grudge hints that the star has been paying off problems for years. The final click comes when Colt realizes how neatly his own history would fill the outline of a culprit. He has a public accident on his record, a disappearance that looks like a flake out, and just enough access to be accused of tampering. If someone needed a believable fall guy, they could not draw one better than the broken stuntman trying to make good. He tries to explain what he is seeing to Jodie and runs into a wall of hurt that has nothing to do with crime. She does not want her movie imperiled by gossip dressed up as detective work, and she does not want to hear another story from the man who left her without a goodbye. Their argument is clean and cruel. She tells him to do the job he was hired for and stay out of the rest. He tells her he is trying to keep the set safe because he could not keep himself safe before. They walk away angrier than when they started, which is proof that they still care. The search collapses the barrier between staged danger and real danger. Colt finds himself in car chases that are not blocked in advance, boat crashes that do not have rescue divers waiting just out of frame, and hand-to-hand fights in kitchens that were not padded for falls. Years of discipline keep him alive. He rolls with impacts, protects his neck, and aims his body where it will do the least long-term harm. The difference is that when he shouts reset, nothing resets. The only way out is through, and the bruises do not wait for makeup to cover them. These sequences also show why Colt's craft matters. He sees angles a civilian would not. He flips a table so it lands against a wall stud instead of a hollow panel. He slides down a banister because the landing has a runner that will give him friction. He knows how fire behaves around certain fabrics and uses that knowledge to move through a burning hallway without panic. The camera within the movie catches none of it because none of it is part of the planned story, but the audience understands. The thing he is best at is keeping other people safe when everything else breaks. The emotional core is the slow movement from hostility back to trust. Jodie is not a symbol of forgiveness or a prize for Colt to win. She's a director doing the hardest job she has ever had, and she's also someone who was hurt deeply by the way he left. He does not get to fix that with a single admission. What he can do is show up when the day gets long, solve problems that do not have his name on them, and tell the truth when lying would be easier. She can meet him halfway by recognizing that his retreat was fear, not indifference, and that it is possible to be angry and still care. They relearn their old rhythm in small gestures that read as loudly as any shouted reconciliation. He anticipates a shot she wants and has the rig ready before she asks. She calls cut when she sees him favoring his back and pretends that it is for lighting. They swap dry jokes in front of crew to diffuse tension and speak plainly when they steal a minute behind a grip truck. The movie never suggests that love erases hurt. It suggests that two disciplined professionals can practice forgiveness the way they practice stunts, with planning, repetition, and a willingness to take a hit for the partner's sake. The satire stays focused on the trio. Colt's asides are not there to impress strangers, They are there to keep his nerves steady and sometimes to let Jody know he is still himself. He mocks obvious computer effects because he knows the audience can feel the difference between weightless spectacle and a body hitting the ground. Jody throws the joke back at him by pointing out where she needs a digital safety net because no set can afford to lose people for the sake of purity. Ryder remains the punchline in many of these exchanges, bragging in press clips about authenticity while habitually avoiding any situation that might smudge his image. Ryder's vanity is not cartoonish, it is practical. He wants to be adored, so he borrows other people's work and tells the story in a way that keeps the spotlight pointed at his face. When he lies to protect himself, he does it with the confidence of someone who has rarely been contradicted. Colt and Jody see through him because they have done the work he takes credit for and because they have paid the cost he refuses to share. The humor lands because it is accurate. The movie is not sneering at actors. It is drawing a bright line between performance and the labor that makes performance possible. Colt's trail finally catches up to the star he has been chasing. Ryder is not a mastermind pulling levers. He is a frightened celebrity who made poor decisions and let worse people make decisions for him. He owes money to people who do not forgive, and he trusts fixers who do not stay bought. Colt understands that exposing the truth could destroy the production Jody fought to lead. He also understands that letting the lie stand will leave him carrying blame that does not belong to him. The only path forward is to bring Jody into the facts and ask her to help thread a needle between saving the movie and saving their own lives. That partnership rekindles not because the danger is romantic, but because it is clarifying. When bullets are real and engines are hot, there is no room for posturing. Jody sees Colt do the job with no safety net and recognizes the man she loved in the precision of his choices. Colt sees Jody make calls under pressure and recognizes the director she always promised she would become. Together, they begin to set a trap that will force the liars into daylight and put the credit for the work back where it belongs. Everything converges on the movie's own set, which is about to become a battlefield disguised as a final sequence. The villains intend to erase Ryder to close out their scheme and to hang the blame for the chaos on Colt. Colt and Jody intend to flip that script by staging one more massive stunt that will expose the plot without destroying the film. The crew thinks they are preparing for the biggest camera move of the shoot. Only a handful of people understand that the difference between fiction and reality is about to be measured in inches and seconds. This is where we stop. The final tactics, the last reversals, and the exact shape of the spectacle belong to the audience. Up to this point, The Fall Guy is a story about three people whose choices collide in a business that rewards image over honesty. Colt Seavers falls, hides, and then chooses to stand up knowing he might fall again. Jody Morneau takes the risk of leadership and refuses to let love or fear compromise her judgment. Tom Ryder clings to a brand he can no longer control and learns that fame is not a shield. Around them, the film makes a case for practical craft, earned trust, and the way a good stunt team can save a day that has gone wrong. This recap gives you a complete, fully written path to the brink of the finale, ready for you to drop in timestamps and voiceover without worrying about missing pieces or unfinished thoughts.